Chris, nice job.
All right.
All right, I'm going to call this regular Board of Education meeting to order. We start every meeting with reciting of our vision statement. Every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. And we had 15 submissions for public comment. I will read the summary. Barb, am I reading the summary for each of these? Mm-hmm. Thank you. There were 17 written statements submitted from noon on Friday, August 27th until 3 p.m. on Monday, August 30th, 2021. The full report is attached to this agenda item. The summary of the topics includes 16 in support of the proposed resolution mandating vaccinations for all MMSD employees and 1 in favor of those who have a valid reason for not wanting to get vaccinated at the present time. Thank you, Barb.
Thank you.
All right.
We have 8 public appearances. Our first speaker is Anna Holzer. Hey, Anna, if you could, turn on your mic and your video, please, and, we're ready.
Do we have Anna
I
on?
can see her. Yep.
Okay.
I can see her in the meeting. Anna, can you hear me? We're ready for your public appearance. Anna Holzer.
I apologize. I had my volume turned all the way down, so I did not hear you. I just wanted to thank you all for taking up the vaccine mandate. I do have children that grossly affects, and I wrote a letter before this so that you guys would, saying that what kind of my situation. I won't rehash that tonight because you guys already know that situation. It's already noted. But I kind of wanted to chat a little bit and just kind of bring up some things that are challenging right now for special education. Like mainly, the thing is that like we don't know what's going on, like with the beginning of the school year. And I think that I know that there's a lot going on, but the fact that there's absolutely no picture of like, I don't know, like I've asked my child's case manager, like, hey, how do we do this? Because I do have a child who's immunocompromised. So my high school student now can't go back into the building until my youngest child is able to be vaccinated. And so now we're in a weird place. And there's no clear thing of like how we're going to proceed with virtual versus not virtual. And there's just been a lot of unclearness and a lot of chaos. And I feel like that happens a lot where it comes to things like with special ed. I feel like we are, my student is one of the groups who is most profoundly affected, is the furthest behind, has not had access to therapies for a year and a half due to immunocompromised status of his sibling, and now is in a position where we're not sure if he can or cannot do that again. And I would really like to urge that we work towards making sure there's some clear things. So like when we're putting out something for the entire district, also making sure that we're putting out stuff for like special education. And I know I brought that to the table before, but I just really think that making sure that we say something about special ed. It's not just like this is the generic of MMSD, and then we're not going to release anything where it stands to special ed until maybe the last minute. And it's it's really challenging. Our lives are really challenging already. We're already doing quite a bit. And when you have that uncertainty, it's a lot. And I know we're all in a weird place, but I just want to bring to light what that looks like right now for families with special education and that uncertainty. It's Monday evening, and I have no idea what we're doing on Friday. So once again, I just want to thank you guys for bringing the mask mandate in, passing that. And I'm just asking that you look into kind of how things are being handled for students with special education. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Our next public appearance is,
Our next speaker is Deanna Zorko.
Good evening. My name is Dina Zorko. I'm speaking to you today because I'm being forced to make a choice between the career and the students I love and my life and health. So I need your help. I'm a dual organ transplant recipient. So I was a type 1 diabetic for 20 years and was living with type 1 diabetes. And I am a teacher at West High School. Over the course of my 18 years in the district, I've appreciated all the accommodations the district has previously made for it to be possible for me to teach my students, both as a diabetic and as a transplant recipient. Sorry, this is very upsetting. Life as a teacher has been challenging during a global pandemic. But when you're immunocompromised, it's extremely challenging, as you just heard from the previous speaker. Even though I'm vaccinated, I'm not protected against the COVID. I'm sorry, I lost my place here. Even though I'm vaccinated, I'm not protected due to aggressive medication that I have to take to avoid organ rejection. And the Delta variant has made it even more dangerous to be in an overcrowded West High School. The district administration has repeatedly refused since July 23rd to afford me accommodations to work virtually for the upcoming school year, as outlined and supported by my doctors, and I quote, "to keep Ms. Zorko safe from severe illness and death from COVID-19. It was especially ironic to me that in the same week, the district offered 4K and 5th grade families a new virtual option to protect the immunocompromised family members. They informed me I must return to the classroom in person against my doctor's recommendations. The accommodation I'm asking for worked for my classes and my students last spring, and I'm simply asking for that to continue. I'm passionate about working with my students. I've been nationally, regionally, and locally recognized for a quality of work with my students. And in this environment of teacher shortages, it would be impossible to find a suitable replacement in time for the needs of my students who will be in class on Thursday and Friday. I'm asking for your support to continue to teach my amazing students, and I thank you for your time and your attention.
thank you.
Our next speaker is Greg Engel.
Hi, good evening. So last October, I came before the board along with several other parents to ask you to release the full report related to the East High School cameras that were used on field trips against students. And Dr. Jenkins, I don't know if you remember, I came to you, we came to you, my family did, and we spoke with you and you spoke with my daughter. And you promised us that you would do whatever it took to release whatever information you could from that report. And then all of you ignored us for the next year. And none of our questions were answered and the report was kept secret. And so now it was released 2 weeks ago in the media, which was extremely upsetting to us because all we can assume is that we never would have gotten a chance to see that report if it hadn't been released by mistake. And when I read it, all I could ask myself was, what in that report did we not deserve to see? What in that report could not and should not have been made publicly available? And so I'm telling you that report should have been given to us and made public last fall. And the fact that it took a year to come out had real consequences for us, because that report was not a thorough investigation. And there are, we believe, key facts that are missing. And now, a year later, nearly everyone from the district involved is gone, and we've lost an opportunity for truthful discussion, and we've lost an opportunity for accountability. And so I'm asking for the board to put on the next agenda an open discussion of the investigation and of the report, so that parents, and I'm asking you to reopen the investigation into that, so that parents and students who are willing to talk have an opportunity to share their side of the story, and we can have a truthful discussion about what happened. And so the other thing that I wanted to bring up is that there's a larger issue that really this has opened up for me. And that's that by using this baseless reason to hide this report for a year, that's a clear violation of the principles of open government. I mean, what is there to stop this from happening for the next investigation? And this should be a concern for everybody, because this isn't really how government is supposed to work. And I think this should be a concern for you as the board, because this is your role, is to provide oversight of the district and represent us. And we do not feel like we've been represented in this situation at all. So then one last request I have, and that's that please stop making public statements that all of this lack of transparency was to protect us and protect the victims. It's not about that at all. You never consulted with the victims' families, and you never, and we asked for exactly the opposite. So I'm please asking you to stop doing that, and please be more transparent with us going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do not see our next speaker in the meeting right now. I'm looking for Katie McLennan, but I do see Martha Ceravo, so I'm going to let her.
Do you see me now? My name is wrong on my thing, but I am here.
Oh,
This is Katie McLennan.
Yeah,
We see you.
Okay,
please.
great.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So following Greg's statement, 2 weeks ago today, former East High School teacher, coach, and mentor, David Kretchen pled guilty in federal court to 3 charges, including 14 counts of sexual exploitation of children that occurred during school field trips. There are too many students, too many trips, too many years, too many violations to think that this is just about one terrible man. It is a system failure, the district's failure. The incomplete and inaccurate administrative review report dated June 17th, 2020, that Greg just talked about, is just one more example of this system failure. How will you accurately account for what happened, repair the damage, and prevent it from happening again in a way that truly hears and supports the students, families, and our community? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Martha Ceravo.
Thank you for joining us, Martha.
Thank you. Will I have a timer on the screen?
I don't put it on the screen. I just have it in the background, Martha. Thank you, though.
Thank you for coming together tonight, everybody on the board. It's nice to see your faces again, but I'm here today, and my name is Martha Ceravo. I'm with the Mantle Moms and Disability Advocates. I'm here because I'm frustrated. I cannot believe we are within a week of school and I am still asking questions. I expect to encounter issues sometimes, but I do not mind working through them. I'm a problem solver, and that's how it goes sometimes. But I'm still asking questions. I still don't know what's happening at the end of the week. I'm still having to have these conversations. I like that there's been options that have been opened up to elementary school students, but when you have a virtual option opened up and you don't have any way to account it or to make it appropriate for students who have different learning abilities. The special education needs are not going to be met with the general online programming. So I'm actually having to build something into my daughter's programming for this year. We're putting the I back in IEP. That's where it was always meant to be. Last year had a lot of good things, but it had a lot of challenges. And this year almost feels like we're doing the same thing. We tried to get our students back in the building. We tried getting the students, who needed the IEPs met and all the services. We tried putting that, giving them the supports that they needed. And this year, we'll give just like this little subset of students the virtual option. But if you can't do that, we don't know what to do otherwise. I'm busy giving an option to my daughter's team right now of a third option. I invite anybody on the board to talk with me to figure out what that option is, because it's going to work for us, because that's how it's meant to work. It's supposed to work around each individual student and for all that they need. The diversity of our students also includes the 14% of students who have IEPs and need to make sure that everything is met on those through this year as best we can. We know that it's not perfect, but it needs to happen. And the conversation needs to be opened up, because whenever I hear anything on the news about what's happening in our schools, I don't hear a thing about what's happening in special education. I want to hear something. I want to know that I can go to my parent support teacher. I want to know who's in charge of that. I want to hear something that we know that we're being thought of and taken care of too. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
Our next speaker, I do not see Melissa McLennan, but I do see Philosophy Walker.
Hi, can I go ahead?
Yes, please, thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Good evening. My name is Philosophy Walker, and I am the parent of an incoming kindergartner at Orchard Ridge Elementary. I'm also a professional science and technical writer, and I'm here to speak to you in support of the vote that you just took to mandate COVID-19 vaccination for teachers and staff in the MMSD school district. As you might know from my previous emails to the board, vaccine mandates in schools are broadly and seriously supported by experts. Dr. Anthony Fauci supports vaccine mandates in schools, as does the American Federation of Teachers and the National Education Association. The public school systems in New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, and the entire states of Oregon, Washington, California, Connecticut, New Mexico, New Jersey, and Hawaii have all mandated either vaccines or regular testing for teachers and staff. I deeply appreciate all the things that the board and the MMSD administration have done to keep our kids safe, while helping them learn as normally as possible through this crisis. The implementation of an indoor mask mandate, school hygiene, and social distancing policies, and optional virtual instruction for all grade levels are excellent steps that you've taken. However, there is no one silver bullet in public health. The best way to prevent COVID-19 transmission is by adopting the Swiss cheese model, whereby a number of different layers of defense result in smaller and smaller transmission risks. Although a significant proportion of our teachers have already been vaccinated, requiring every adult who works in an MMSD school building to receive a vaccination is an important layer in that model. I understand you might have concerns, including worries that vaccine mandates might exacerbate an already precarious teacher shortage. While I understand and sympathize with your concerns, I urge you to consider what effect an outbreak of COVID-19 in the school might have on the available supply of teachers. Vaccine mandates help prevent the spread of COVID-19 and therefore can help keep our kids learning in person or otherwise during the 2021 to 2022 school year. As part of my work, I regularly attend the meetings of the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. At today's meeting, Dr. Matthew Daly, chair of the committee's work group, told attendees that, quote, at this point in the pandemic, death from COVID-19 is largely vaccine preventable. He also said that this current surge represents a, quote, failure to vaccinate, not vaccine failure. We in Madison can be part of the solution to this crisis, not only by using every tool at our disposal to keep our own kids safe and learning in person as much as possible, but also as models for other school districts in the state and country. I ask you to vote in favor of a vaccine mandate based on the best available science we have to date. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the final speaker that I have on my list is Ryan Grotz, Grotte. I do not see him in the meeting. However, I do see somebody with the name WILS. Could you identify, please?
Hi, I think you're trying to reach me. My name is Melissa McLennan, and I cannot change my name on the Zoom, so I'm very sorry for that.
I can do that. Give me your name, please.
Melissa McLennan.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. Sorry for the technical glitch.
No problem.
Okay. Should I go ahead?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. On August 20th, I sent each of you on the board and Superintendent Jenkins an email signed by several parents with the subject line, independent review of field trip policies and procedures, response requested. Until about an hour ago, I had not received any response. So I'd like to read an abbreviated version of that now to make sure that you each hear our questions and our requests. It read in part, you may have seen the recent ISMIS article, which published the report produced by the district following the arrest of former teacher David Crutchen for charges of attempting to produce child pornography. You may also recall that we repeatedly asked to read the report last year and were denied. Having read the report, it has confirmed some of our worst fears and yet leaves many questions still unanswered. Number one, why did the district not release this report to victims, their families, and the board? Number two, by the time the attorney was hired to perform the investigation, the district knew that David Crutchen had been charged with crimes on multiple trips, but this report only focuses on one trip. How could the school hope to identify systemic problems without reviewing other trips? Most importantly, can you imagine if you were a student and a victim in a charged crime on another trip, but the district didn't feel that that was worthy of investigation? Number three, the report states that a determination was made not to interview students due to the trauma they experienced. Who made this decision and why weren't victims and parents consulted? Number four, there are parents who had relevant information to share, some of which may have conflicted with the report. Why were no parents interviewed? Number five, there are many suggestions in the report for improving policies and procedures for field trips. Why weren't those included in the summary provided for families? What steps has the district taken to implement any of the recommendations in more than a year since the report has been completed? Why has there been no communication with parents and victims at this point? We request that this topic and this report be put on your next school board agenda. We expect the board and district to share transparently and in a timely manner with the greater public what you will do to ensure closure for past victims and safety for current and future MMSD students. That's the end of that shortened email, but I do just have a couple more things to add. My requests to you have been consistent for the last 18 months. Keep victims and families informed, involve us in the investigation, and involve us in the solution. We sincerely want to help make sure that this never happens to another student again. And one more thing that has become increasingly apparent, there needs to be a better process for parents, for students, and for others to ask for internal investigations, to be included in those investigations, and for that process to be open, transparent, and work. Time and time again, this investigation has felt hidden behind closed sessions and through claims of client-lawyer privilege. The district should have articulated mechanisms in place for accountability. Taxpayers pay your salary. Voters put you into your seats to represent their best interests. I ask you to work with the public to develop those mechanisms so victims and families, students and teachers don't have to struggle against the heavy doors of political and administrative bureaucracy and organizational self-interest. Thank you.
That was our final speaker. I do not see Ryan Grott, GROTTE.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to Board President's announcements and report. 100 Black Men of Madison Back to School School Supplies Community Event earlier this month. The 100 Black Men of Madison, Inc. successfully hosted their annual Back to School celebration, which helps provide free backpacks and school supplies to elementary and middle school students. Due to COVID-19, the event was a curbside drive-through event, but nevertheless, the event was a success. Once again, distributing supplies to over 1,800 students. The board recognizes and appreciates the ongoing effort of the 100 Black Men of Madison organization and all the volunteers involved that were able to distribute the much-needed supplies to families in need. Thank you so much, Dr. Rosen, and to all of the members of 100 Black Men for that work. MMSD Summer Food Program helped feed many of our students this summer. Our MMSD Food and Nutrition staff in partnership with Second Harvest successfully executed another year of the MMSD Summer Food Program that helped feed many of our district school children at 30 curbside pickup sites in Dane County. The program's pickup sites allowed families to gather food for the entire week. The board greatly appreciates all MMSD food service staff and Second Harvest for their effort to see our children fed nutritious and consistent meals, especially in these ongoing unprecedented times. MMSD Allied Community Center Community Garden Program for students. This summer, several students participated in the newly formed MSCR Allied Community Center Community Garden Program that allows students of all ages to learn about gardening and planting vegetables. The students learned lessons on a variety of species of plants, sustainable planting techniques, and the importance of community gardening. The board recognizes the success of MSCR's Allied Community Center Community Gardening Program and appreciates all of those involved in passing this knowledge on to all of the MMSD students who participated. All right, and now we move on to the superintendent's announcements. Dr. Jenkins.
Thank you so much, Board Chair. At this time, I'm going to do my presentation on the reopening of schools. And I tell you, we're so excited to have this opportunity to have all of our students and our parents and just the community coming back together. And I'm going to give a short presentation here. And at the beginning of all of our presentations, we start off with our students and our community connecting. And so, no different here. As you can look, you can see all of our wonderful students, just staff, others out connected. But to ground all of our presentations, we like to start our presentations off with our mission, as you heard our board chair read off earlier. What we clearly state in terms of as a part of MMSD's vision, and that's every school will be a thriving school. Next, if you would, Barb. Okay, every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate ready for college, yes, career, and the community. We take this pretty seriously. I was just reflecting on this vision as we do so many things, and the parents tonight who came out and spoke, I just wanted to say thank you, and we can't have thriving schools without thriving parents, and that means, too, that we have to continue to work on our relationships and just working together to ensure that those things that are part of our mission actually are realized. And then next, we have our core values that we, in MMSD, we lift all the time. Excellence. And we have to continue to revisit it interrogate ourselves and make sure that we're becoming better. We talk about our students feeling a sense of belonging. We're taking it pretty seriously in our district as we talk about racial equity and social justice. We want to be, play to all of our students' creativity, but I really appreciate the parent tonight too, talking about the IEP and making sure that we capture every student, not just the IEP, students who are advanced learners, everything in between, and taking the voices of everyone, our students, our staff, and our parents, so that we can continue to have our focus. That's just a part of who we are in terms of our core. We're very excited to start the year as we look at our strategic framework. Our strategic framework lays out our goals for it very clearly. Here, we talk about every child is on track to graduate ready for college, career, and community. No one could have anticipated the last 18 months what we've had when we had that particular goal there. So now we're at a point where we are recalibrating what does that mean, and as we lean forward into this year, we're going to be talking about that quite a bit, and then trying to report out as to how we're going to make that happen. The district and every school in it is a place where children, staff, and families thrive, which goes right back to our mission. We're hoping that everyone can begin to feel that as we're going to roll together. Now, there will be some pivoting that will have to take place because of the pandemic. We know that, but we're learning more. We know more now than what we did 18 months ago. So, though we've had this strategic framework, we're trying to see how we lean into it together. Goal 3 is very critical as to who we are. As we talk about the African American children and youth, they excel. We know during the pandemic, there was quite a bit of disengagement that happened in some of our communities, but particularly with our African American youth and children. So we're going to lean forward into that as well. As you see in the next picture, as we've been going out, and we're seeing the pictures and what we're reminded of so much. You see the picture of our graduates? Going into this year, we think about our graduates. We had our first graduation in person, and it was exciting. So we still think about that. But how can we be better this year, better prepared? We learned from the previous years that we were able to safely have graduations all over. We were able to get our children back in school this spring, and we just saw our students' spirits being lifted. As we know, the interacting face-to-face helped our students socially, emotionally. We're going to stay forward. We'll continue to lean forward with that mentality. How can we help our students thrive socially, emotionally, mentally? So as a result of what has been happening, we're leaning forward together. This is our mantra this year. As we think about leaning forward together, we're going to do it in excellence. We're going to do it with equity, humanity, and intentionality. We're committed to an academic excellence, equity, and safety. You heard a lot of discussion in our previous meeting about that, and community service as we embrace the critical role our schools play in the lives of every student in our community. Never before has this been so true when we see that we're not only focused on the whole child, but we're focused on the whole community, the whole family, and everyone's having to lean in and do a little bit more in ways to help lift the entire community. We'll continue to implement letters. We know, looking at our district historically, we have not performed as well with our students as we want to in the areas of reading. So we're looking at letters and the science of reading, of how we're going to be able to look at early literacy and beyond. Today, the other day I met a family, they were talking about their high school age child that's still behind with reading. So when we say early literacy and beyond, it's not just reading. We're talking about writing, we're talking about math literacy. There are various forms of literacy that we're going to really get into and lean in hard as we move forward. But we also have the reality of the pandemic. When we talk about assessments, we're not just talking about standardized assessment. We're also talking about assessing those things that have become strengths of our children during this time. What we have noticed from a lot of our children, they're doing things now that's really teaching us. And a lot of that has to do with things around humanity. Nama tonight, the way she spoke at the board meeting, just about a student speaking about the vaccinations and what it means. Our children are learning this whole thing around humanity that I think we can take great lessons from. Also, we're continuing as a district to be intentional about a particular emphasis on our goal 3. We're leaning into this very hard. This has been the district's goal, goal 3. And with this particular goal 3, we're going to lean into what does it really mean to focus on our African American children and youth. Based upon our state report card that came in, 46 of the 52 schools had targets based upon the performance of our African American children being at the lowest level. And we know if you lift up the lowest level, you lift up everyone. And this is not lifting up some and pulling others down. We're not into this in terms of gaps. What we're into striving for excellence for all students. But if we concentrate with the best practices, like I mentioned in letters earlier, just the science of reading, we know that we can impact everybody. And we're looking at other ways too our students can get involved. And you're going to see us focusing some on the arts this year. A lot of conversation is going to be about the arts because we do know too, students can thrive more than just in standardized exams, and we want to recognize that. As I've been out in the community this summer, you see me here with the most recognition program. The next slide. Go to the next one. Yes. Thank you. You see me here at the recognitions. You see us out in the community. We had the Miss Malele celebration and the renaming of the school. You can see the energy already picking up as individuals are excited about the children coming back to school. You see us also practicing not only social distance, but we're looking at the mitigation strategies. Individuals are wearing their masks appropriately. So we know more now than what we knew last year. We were even nervous at the end of the year. What did it mean with the change in ordinance from public health, from CDC, and even our medical advisors? But given all that we have experienced, we feel greatly prepared to do what we have to do. Next. We'll continue to lean forward with intentionality and safety, following recommendations and guidance from our local health experts, CDC, Department of Health, ABC Collaborative, that we are part of a national group, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and also our local wellness advisory group, along with all of our teachers and administrators who are part of the advisory committee and the board members. We're going to lean forward. We're looking at universal practices, masking, contact tracing, frequent hand washing, sanitizing, respiratory etiquette, physical distancing. All of this that we're doing to be ready to lean forward as we move into this next year. Our Office of School Safety, we're going to have a balance between physical safety of our students, staff, and school buildings with the importance of social, emotional, and psychological safety. This is important to us. We're trying to put a face on the year, you know? In the next, we're putting a face on the year. Next slide. Putting a face on the new school year. As we look at our facilities, the referendum, all that has happened, we're trying to keep our promises and make sure that our facilities are there. But we're also there in a very nice way. They're looking great, but they're also taking advantage of the mitigation strategies that we know we need to continue to work on so that we can prevent the spread of COVID-19. We've also worked in our buildings in terms of the ventilations and all those other things that we know that will work well for us. But we're very excited about the academics and the aspirations and preparing to engage our students in high-quality learning environments when we address disparities. We know that we have disparities, and we're ready to accelerate some of that learning, but we're going to have to be intentional, and at times we will have to pivot. Small things are big things. Big things are small things. And tonight's presentation from Martha from Mad Moms, I really appreciate that. And I like that, putting the I back in the IEP. That was real. That was a real month, real challenge. We have some parents saying, my kid can't come back because they're medically fragile. For some, that may not mean a lot, but we know we have some children who are really, really harmed by being in school in close contact, and they seriously need to have the virtual option. We pivoted as the science has changed. Yes, and I tell you, I take it all on myself, because as we continue to look, we said, what was going to be the best decision? Make a decision and stick to it. I do what's going to be best for children at the end of the day. And as a result, we have a number of parents at the elementary level who are going to take advantage of our virtual school. But it's not just intended for medically fragile children. for children who may have, this may be the best option for that family because you have also family members who are immune compromised. So thank you to all of those who have worked with us on that. We're going to continue to look at our culture and climate. As we know, building a culture of nurturing relationships where students, staff, and families can thrive. Yes, Mr. Engel, that means having the real conversations with yourself and the parents in the East community. We know that we have several things that we need to address. We're going to address them, okay? And I'll just say to you, we haven't been able to get to everything, and we own that. We're going to have expectations, and having the expectations for excellence, and excellence is going to remain the standard for what we're trying to do. But we're going to have to climb it. It's a hill. I tell you that, it's not a downslide. It's almost like a roller coaster. You go up, then you come down. We'll have good days, and we're going to have some bad days. But just know this, in MMSD, just like the next slide, we'll find a way to come back together to be around our children. And our end goal is going to be on that graduation. If you look at the left, you look to the right, our graduation will continue to lead us to where we are. Having said all that, we are ready to open our schools. We're going to lean forward together. This journey will not be over by the first quarter. We're going to be in this for a minute, but we're in it together. So let's lean forward together and interrogate one another for the best interest of all of our children, staff, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jenkins. We're going to move on to reports that proceed through the instruction work group held on August 2nd, 2021. Board Member Morelli.
Thank you so much, President Muldrow. We wanted to first share our deep appreciation to our community and our district staff on the support and the resource allocation for the long-awaited implementation of full day 4K. My colleagues and I had an opportunity to have a full set of information around what is it going to look like for our schools moving forward. And we had a really rich discussion, and I know a lot of my colleagues are extremely passionate and have been working on supporting this implementation for quite some time. So thank you to our community. We also received an update around our asset identification and the supports that are being implemented this next school year. We were able to review a comprehensive set of information regarding how asset identification happens, but also what are some of the supports that are being discussed and being planned to roll out this next year. We had a great discussion on how we're going to support and address, in particular, adult practices in the classrooms, and how we're going to support our teachers and school staff around enhancing skills and providing a learning environment for our students that feel inclusive and equitable. Both of those conversations were extremely beautiful, and I'm extremely proud of my colleagues and our district in moving those things forward. For our September meeting, September 13th, we are slated to discuss our school reopening, having an update on what that's going to look like. And also, our administration have proposed a moratorium on school suspensions for pre-K through 5th grades. We're also going to be looking at reviewing a couple of policies, the reporting child abuse and neglect, and the health and wellness policy. Thank you so much, President Muldrow, for the opportunity to speak on the updates.
Thank you so much, Board Member Morelli, for those updates. Next, we will report on items that proceeded through the Operation Work Group held on August 9th, 2021. Board Member Carisi.
Thank you, President Muldrow. We had three main agenda topics on August 9th. The first was an update on what's happening with the state education budget. The second was a conversation about contract amendment and extension of our pupil transportation contract. And third, we discussed updates to our communicable disease policy, as well as retiring 3 COVID-specific policies that were once mandated by Public Health Madison-Dade County and now no longer are. And we will be acting on that final item, those policy items, in just a moment. And as far as our next meeting, it will be on September 20th. And our 3 topics for that agenda include a facilities construction update, the plan for COVID-19 vaccination, mandatory vaccination that we just voted on in the resolution. And then we will also be doing some policy work, potentially on surveillance cameras and age of students.
Thank you so much, Board Member Carusi. I am now going to move us to action items that proceeded through Operations Work Group held on August 9th, 2021. I move that the Board of Education revise revisions to Policy 7550, Communicable Diseases, as set forth in the document prepared for the August 30th, 2021 regular meeting.
Second, Nikki Vandermeer.
Open for discussion. Board Member Gomez-Schmidt.
Yeah, thank you. This is a really important policy change and review, modified from the 2013 version to more broadly cover federal regulations, state statutes, administrative rules, city ordinances, and more specifically, regulations that are set forth by the Center for Disease Control and Public Health Madison-Dade County for communicable disease containment. The language is broader and allows us to be more flexible and nimble by putting some of the information in the guidance documents, the health service guidance documents that help offices use, will allow us to respond to future basically regulations and guidance from public health and CDC in a more timely way. One of the things that I think we need to add back in that sort of got taken out of the procedure of this policy is the maintenance of information on communicable disease. And there were 3 pieces of that, and I don't need any changes to it, but I think we do need to add that in because it details where our information on communicable diseases is housed in our schools, and that it is basically the guidelines are maintained by health services. And so I think that's an important piece for us to have in, although the other pieces of the procedure, I think, we're okay to remove.
Thank you, Board Member Gomez-Schmidt. Board Member Vandermeulen.
I agree in theory with Chris Gomez-Schmidt. I think they need to be changed. My issue is more of the semantics on that. I still think the board needs to be notified or flash vote if we do major policy changes as required under 8200, that the board doesn't completely give up that right. And I really don't want to lose that. At the same time, I want to be nimble, so I'm wondering if there's some kind of compromise that we can come to where the board is just notified. It doesn't mean we have to act, but we're notified when it's changed. If that could be put in.
Board Member Vandermeulen, I apologize. I'm not exactly sure if you're asking me to do something specific with
I was
regards
asking
to-
Chris, actually.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I guess I'm a little confused as to what you're asking, because basically to revise this policy, we went through the process of bringing it to the operations work group and had discussion. And they provided the updated document to us. The one change that I'm suggesting, and I can do it as an amendment, but it is the language that's already in the policy that exists. And so I just don't want the maintenance of information to be removed from the current policy as we amend it.
Now I totally understand, and I totally rescind everything I said now that I understood, because I totally missed that.
Okay.
And I am totally in favor of it.
So, I'm sorry, Chris, are you moving to amend?
I guess I'm looking for guidance from Sherry on if we have to amend, or if, how the process would work for doing this on the floor.
I'm gonna say that you would have to amend.
Okay, then I'm going to move to amend the communicable disease policy as written to include the maintenance of information on communicable disease, as it is stated currently in policy 7550 in procedure number 5.
Second, amended motion.
Chris, you were seconding as well.
I was gonna second, but, yeah,
I didn't see your hand, I'm sorry.
no problem.
So open for discussion, both of the original motion and the amendment. Any further discussion?
Can, Chris, do you mind, or Gumschmidt, do you mind reading again what's the amendment? I'm sorry, I feel like I got a little lost of what was happening.
Sure, no problem. Right now, as the communicable disease policy is written and was passed back in 2013, it had language which has been changed. It also had a section on procedure where there were basically 5 numbered procedures. We took out the procedures on the exclusion of students because it didn't quite apply in the same way now that we're dealing with COVID. And that guidance is put into the health services and guidance documents that the schools use. The one piece that I think we need to retain is number 5 in that procedures that tells where the health services guidance is maintained in the district and in the school. So where people can find them when they go to the school, and how they're presented to staff, basically.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think
So
you emailed us. No, I think you emailed us about this, so I appreciate you. Yes, thank you for clarifying.
I'm sorry, Barbara, you asking me?
You emailed this today, do you want that on the screen now? Or is everybody comfortable with looking at their email from Chris about this?
Barb, if you want to bring it up on the screen, that way we have it, in terms of the discussion and the vote. I'm sorry, I need the screen to share, Barb, so that I can see Savian and Ananda at the same time. Thank you.
Sorry.
No worries.
And Nama.
And Nama, I'm sorry, Nama. Thank you, Ananda. Chris Carusi, I'm looking like right at you.
I just want to, when it comes to adding back, item 5, the maintenance of information piece, given the public speakers we had tonight, and pretty much every one of them spoke to us about transparency and communication and knowing the details, it seems that adding this back in is a small step towards ensuring that people know where this information lives in our buildings and when they can access it, whether it's staff or parents. So I fully support putting this back in.
Yeah, I will just say I agree completely with this amendment, and Chris, I second what you just said in terms of reinforcing transparency and making sure folks know where they can gather information. Any further discussion? All right, then I will ask that we vote first on Chris's amended version. Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Motion carries 7-0. All right.
She's a genius in parliamentary procedure already.
And we are on to the consent agenda. I move that the board, I'm sorry?
Do we have to?
Oh, no, we have a second one. My apologies. Thank you. The second motion, I move that the Board of Education inactivate board policy 7549 hygiene and 7551 protective measures and 7552 facility cleaning. I need a second. Thank you. Open for discussion or any discussion?
I just want to say that I appreciate the administration responding to the need for a procedure to deactivate policy. It doesn't happen very often, but it's good that we're formalizing it. And thank you.
Any other discussion? Board Member Gomez-Schmidt.
I just want to clarify that these are being inactivated because they were put into effect back in January of 2021 to respond to Madison Dane County Public Health Order number 12, which has been changed, and so this will allow us to be more responsive.
Thank you so much for speaking to that, Board Member Gomez-Schmidt. Any other discussion? Nama, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye. Vote carries 7-0. And that brings us to the consent agenda. I move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all the motions set forth in Section 10 of the electronic agenda prepared for the August 30th, 2021 regular school board meeting, exactly as said motions are written. By voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his or her or their affirmative vote for each of the motions consolidated hereby, subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the school board.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have some separations. 10.6, 10.9, 10.21, and 10.37.
Chris, Christy, I have 4 separations from you, 10.6, 10.9, 10.21, 10.37. Any other discussion or separations? Board Member Morelli.
Please separate 10.11 and 10.13.
10.11 and 10.13. Thank you, Board Member Morelli. Any other discussion or separations? All right, we will vote on the remaining motions. Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0. All right, we will start with the first separation, looking at 10.6. I'm going to read the motion. I move that the Board of Education approve the purchase of Fast Bridge licenses from Illuminate Ed for the 2021-2022 school year in the amount of $138,845 from the 2021/2022 Office of Assignment and Administration Operating Budget.
So I pulled this one because I continue to feel concerned that we are bending the waiver explanation of this too far. And the waiver specifically says that we have obtained another quote for this within the past 2 years, obtained a quote, and actually the justification they gave for this was that we implemented this within the past 2 years, but the quote was actually obtained, as far as I can tell, more than 2 years ago. So I just feel that we have to follow our procurement policy and keep our waivers in mind and follow them exactly, because I know that they're there for a reason. So I am concerned about that, and therefore I wanted to pull this.
Chris, did you want to direct that at a specific member of the administration, or did you want the board to engage in further discussion?
If somebody from the administration would like to respond to that, that would be fine. I don't have a specific person in mind.
Okay.
I have Dr. Pryor go ahead and respond it, or Natalie if she's on as well.
Okay, yes, and unless there's additional information, but I was informed that the original agreement for this purchase licensing was a multi-year, and it was a language included in there that automatically renewed this purchase without having to go back out for bids. And so we've adjusted the language, and I think removed the waiver from this as we were resubmitting it. But you're bringing forth that it's outside of the current year. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, that's what.
The waiver is still there, and that's what it still says. So.
Yeah, the language, and Dr. Pryor, you definitely can speak for yourself. And what he said was a multi-year, but actually when we went back and checked with contract with our people, it was clear that it was within the timeline that it could. Next time we'll have to go out for bid. It was a year. We had another year left on it. In short, is that accurate, Dr. Pryor?
Correct. Correct.
the memo needs to change, and that's why we withdrew the memo from that piece of it. Is that what you were speaking of?
Yes, that's exactly what I was speaking on. And I thought when we had the board briefings, I thought I brought that forth at that time, but it may not have been clear and succinct for you. But yes, that is correct, Dr. Jenkins. When we researched it, we saw that it fell within the timeline of the 21-22. And so therefore it did not require, going out for bid or rebid.
Chris, do you have any follow-up? I'd like to actually follow up and just ask, in terms of this specific item, what does going out to bid look like, and when do we anticipate going out to bid? If we're saying we're falling within kind of our policy right now, when would that expire? And I'm sorry, but the request for the waiver is waiving the need to go out to bid, right?
Yeah.
So I'm confused if we don't need to waive going out to bid.
Why are we waiting?
Well,
Yeah.
if I can interject, I think the original submission, there was a waiver, a request. And when we went back, there was really no need to submit a waiver request. If you look at the language, it was supposed to extend through June the 30th, 2022. And so once we noticed that, I requested that we pull the waiver request.
I think that is kind of an unfortunate error in terms of what's showing up for us in board docs, and I just want to recognize that currently the request for waiver is part of this motion. I think that's providing a little bit of confusion. Natalie, did you want to speak to this? Sorry, is that Natalie up there? No, that's Caroline? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Caroline, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, I agree. I think that the waiver is the complicating factor here. So, we did go back. The original RFP included language for an initial contract that lasted through June 30th. So I think that's why we were pulling the waiver. And it also has 2 one-year extensions prior to going into the RFP process again. So maybe that was our error in resubmitting the waiver. So I apologize if that caused any confusion. And that we definitely consulted with legal and determined that we have followed the approved procurement procedures. So it sounds like the waiver is what is causing confusion, and I apologize for that.
That may not have been communicated to me, or it may have been, and I may have not taken the waiver out when I should have. So that may be me who left that in there when I shouldn't have.
Thank you, Barb. I appreciate that. Board member Carusi.
If that is the case, I would like to amend this to remove the waiver.
Okay. So you want a motion to amend?
I would like a motion to amend.
I'll second your
Passing
motion.
this with no waiver.
Okay.
Thank you.
Room for discussion? All right, so we will vote first on Chris's amendment to carry the motion through without the waiver.
Thank you.
Nama, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. All right. 10.9.
So I pulled this one. I remain confused about this one. So the waiver.
Chris, do you mind if I read this motion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
And get a second, and then open it for discussion, really?
Yes,
So that
I
we
will
can,
be quiet.
yeah, thank you. I move that the Board of Education approve an additional expenditure of $75,000 to be paid as followed follows: 25,000 to Catholic Charities, 50,000 to Children's Hospital of Wisconsin in order to expand behavioral health in schools to a full-time model in 3 MMSD schools using student staff support department, elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund, 2 SR2 funds. Can I get a second?
Second, Nikki Vandermeer.
Thank you. Open for discussion.
So, thank you, President Mulder, I apologize for jumping the gun there.
No worries.
This is another one where I'm wondering if the waiver that is up here might be incorrect. First of all, I fully support this expansion. Like, this is a good thing to do. This is a good way to use our ESSER funds. However, I think, and I could be wrong, but I think ESSER funds qualify as a federal grant, and the waiver that we are using right now does not apply to goods or services that are paid for by federal grants. So I'm just concerned. I could be completely wrong. So if somebody from the administration wants to clarify this, that would be great. But I think the waiver that we are using to not put this out to bid may actually not be okay for something that's funded through a federal grant.
Well, actually, and Dr. Pryor may want to speak to it as well, when we met, Natalie, who's dealt with this, right?
Yeah.
For many years said that it does too meet, we had that discussion if that was fit the requirement for it.
Is this is required? So ESSER is not a federal grant then?
ESSER is a federal grant,
Okay.
I'm saying, but she said it met it. We have that question of did it or did it not? And so, Dr. Pryor, if you want to speak to that as well.
No, and I think you shared the information exactly as we received it. We were assured that it was within guidelines.
Because we had a question.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna read this waiver. It says, other good reason, the board may waive quotation, bid, or proposal requirements under situations not covered by A through H above only upon good cause when the funding source for such goods or services does not include federal grant funds. So I'm feeling confused.
That's why we verified it,
You verified
that it was, yes.
ESSER is okay to waive this on.
Yeah.
I guess I want to ask, is there any way we could have an explanation from compliance around why this specific federal grant is an exception to the rule in terms of this waiver?
Okay.
I really feel as a board member, like, if this, I want to make sure this is legal before I vote to approve it.
Most definitely.
And I'm starting to
want
wonder.
you, yeah, and I want you to feel that way too as well, but there was an explanation, and just like I said, through briefings, that's why we covered this particular one too, and Natalie was there, we talked about this, so let's just, because it's, we need to get it through, but I want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of it, so I'll bring her back and have her speak to you about it.
I'm sorry, so we're going to circle back to this?
Yeah, I'm gonna circle back to it. I don't want you to vote on it if you are not comfortable with this. We've gone through it, but that's what.
Is the delay going to impact children? Like, this is actually a really important thing to
It is.
provide for our kids.
Right, so this is the question I want to ask. I believe that one of the interesting things about the waiver is it applies very specifically to $25,000 for Catholic Charities, which falls beneath the threshold of our procurement.
Yes.
So are we voting, are we halting the vote in its entirety for the full amount, or are we halting the amount that is impacted by the waiver, which would be the $25,000? So do we want to amend past the, $75,000, I believe?
That's what it was.
75,000, do we want to pass the $75,000 expenditure, the $50,000 to the Children's Hospital of Wisconsin, and delay the $25,000, or are we halting the entire $75,000 expenditure?
Could we sever the two?
That's what I'm asking.
I want to make sure. I didn't.
I'm open to that if we can do it.
Isn't it all coming from,
Board Member Gomez-Schmidt.
isn't the 75,000 all coming from the ESSER funds though? So I don't know that it matters who it goes to.
If it's all from ESSER.
It's all from the ESSER 2 fund, which is the federal fund.
Right, but the waiver doesn't apply to the full, my read of this is that the waiver doesn't apply to the full $75,000, it applies to $25,000. we're not asking for the waiver for the full. Do you understand what I'm saying?
At this particular point, what I'm gonna say is,
Yeah.
exact clarity and move us forward, move the 75,000, we'll come back to this. This is under the threshold of 25,000, but at this point, I wanna come back and just have absolute clarity, even though during our meeting, Natalie had spoken with this, and she has over 20 years of experience with this, so yes, we'll come back with 25,000.
I appreciate the ability to have greater explanation of this. I also do agree with Chris that this is an important expenditure. And so I don't want to delay this really necessary work, although I think it's important that we all be very clear in terms of adhering to our own policy and in terms of, you know, utilizing a waiver, applying it to a federal grant appropriately.
I could suggest that we could put something in the weekly update to clarify everything that you're asking right now in the very next weekly update, if you wanted to go ahead and move this and waiting for that to come through on Thursday. That's a suggestion.
So answering questions, and then when would we come back to vote, I guess?
We can put the vote in the open session on the 20th, wouldn't we?
If we do that, if we delay the vote, what are the consequences or ramifications in terms of programming?
I think Kristen Getchell is in the meeting. If she could come forward. Thank you, Kristen.
We are in the process of hiring clinicians and interviewing this week, so there are implications to programming. It will delay and perhaps impact our ability to hire in a pretty tight market right now.
Thank you so much for speaking to that. Are there any other implications you want to make the board aware of?
I think that this is just, you know, I certainly understand where you're coming from and we have to figure out how to navigate this. I think with all the ESSER funding, it's tricky when we have basically 1 year of funding. The longer we are unable to sort of move forward with this and have other, barriers to moving forward with supports, it's just, as practitioners out in the schools, we're trying to do our best we can to spend this money in a short time frame, recognize there's just a lot of pieces that people are trying to navigate.
Thank you so much for speaking to that. Board Member Vandermeulen, I saw your hand. I also see Board Member Castro and Board Member Morelli. Board Member Vandermeulen, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with Board Member Castro, Morelli, and then come back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that comment, Kristen. I think for me, we need to move expeditiously to get these supports in place for kids as school starts, especially on an issue like mental health. So I would support voting tonight, and we just need to move as fast as possible on this. And
thank you so much, Board Member Castro. I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, Fabian.
Sorry, yeah, and just doing all we can as a board to support and trust the experts in the field on this.
Thank you so much, Board Member Castro. Board Member Morelli.
Yeah, I support my colleague Savion Castro on his comments, and I was just hoping that Kristen can identify your role with the district, if it's possible.
Yeah, sorry. I'm currently in the coordinator of mental health, the mental health coordinator for the district.
Yeah, thank you so much for your work, Kristen. Thanks for joining us and clarifying this. Thanks for helping us navigate this item.
Of course, thank you.
Board Member Vandermeulen.
My question is there any legal penalty for taking the funding, using it, and then finding out later that it was not to be used in the manner? Are there any penalties that we would face?
Nikki, just to clarify, I don't think it's that we're using the funding in a manner that it's not meant to be used in. I think we are absolutely using the funding in an okay manner. The question is, would it have had to go out to bid?
I said it backward. I said it absolutely backwards.
So if we waive the bid and then it turns out it did have to go to bid, I don't actually know what the legal ramifications are.
Are we speaking specifically about the 25,000 that's under the threshold?
I think it's the whole seven, I mean, the
Because
way
you
I'm
said it
reading
was
this
federal.
exemption is both children's hospitals, Wisconsin, and Catholic Charities. And I think it's the whole $75,000, so it's not actually below the threshold. So I just want to make sure that, like, dotted all our i's and crossed on our t's. And I'll absolutely sense the urgency here. Like, I want to make sure that we're able to get kids their services.
I see you.
Yay.
So,
That's usually
I just want to pause for a moment because I'm like, I called on Nikki Vandermeulen, and then Chris jumped in, I think, just to kind of support Nikki's question. And now Sherry's on, and I'm like, Sherry, I'm like, are you addressing a portion of Nikki's question or just the conversation overall?
I think I can help with part of Nikki and Chris's questions. So we already have a standing MOA with both of these organizations to support this programming. It came to the board because we're increasing that amount. Initially, the waiver that is submitted was the waiver that was submitted for you to approve the funding for this year for this programming. We had to come back because of the amount to alert the board that we're going to spend an additional $75,000 on this programming. The use of the waiver, while it may have been inappropriate in this case, because we do already have a standing agreement and we would not go back out to bid for just adding additional monies to an already standing agreement, is the issue that we're facing. And that waiver has no impact on whether or not we're doing anything legal or illegal. It's just the board's waiver, or the board saying, you know what, we're going to waive the RFP process for this particular programming because of one of the reasons listed on the waiver document. So today we have before us two organizations that already are in an MOU with us. And as a result, we're just asking the board to vote to allow us to increase the funding to both of these organizations under their current MOA because they're going to continue the work. And this would not necessitate putting it out for bid again.
That helps actually quite a bit.
Thank you so much for speaking to that, Sherry. Board Member Pearson.
So does that mean that we need to amend the language if that language in there just wasn't appropriate to say that we need that waiver part of that? And so then we just vote on the full month then? Because I think what we're all getting hung up is really like the waiver piece in addition to the amount. And so do we just need to take out that language around, or move to take it out and vote on it?
My understanding is that the waiver is an acknowledgement that we didn't necessarily go out to bid.
Yeah, the language in the motion is separate from that.
Okay.
Yep.
I apologize, y'all. I'm not exactly sure how we want to move forward with this specific item because I think what has happened is we've all recognized the importance of this work. And we've also recognized that there is a real technical level of comfort around how we're utilizing waivers. I'm curious in terms of what board members think we should do moving forward. Board Member Vandermeulen.
I'm not a genius in contract or MOU law or grant law, but I can say that if there aren't any fiscal or legal penalties for doing it, I think probably it'd be good to vote on it, go through the services, and then amend the policy at a different time when where it won't harm students or deny them the services, and we can still start school with the full services as required. But that's just me.
Board Member Vandermeulen, I feel very much in agreement with what you just stated. Although I don't know in terms of shifting policy, I do think definitely flagging our utilization of waivers and our bidding process as part of our ongoing conversation is something I think we need to be attentive to moving forward. And I greatly appreciate Board Member Carusi bringing this to our attention because I think it's incredibly important. I also think this body of work is something that we want to support as a board, and I find myself slightly torn in terms of how to do that and honor and acknowledge what Chris brought to our attention. Board Member Gomez-Schmidt.
I'm just curious, based on what Sherry said, is the waiver necessary? Does the waiver have to be there? Because she said it's not necessary because we're expanding the services. Is it necessary for the ESSER funds specifically? I mean, it shouldn't be necessary for the funds either, right?
Sherry, I'm going to ask if you can come back and speak to that.
The waiver is not necessary to spend the ESSER funds.
That's not, just get rid of it.
So can we remove the waiver for this item?
Yes, you can.
I think that solves the problem
That solves the problem,
legitimately. So I think this is the second time that somebody will be motioning to remove the waiver.
I think that was my question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I move to amend this item to remove the waiver.
Second.
Second, Nikki Vandermeulen. Further discussion? Now your advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor, aye. Motion carries 7-0.
What's yours?
Yes.
I'm just gonna also place in the weekly still a written explanation, just so we can make sure that we're all feeling comfortable about what we just did, okay?
Thank you, I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. All right. On to 10.21. Contracts for consulting services. I move that the Board of Education approve entering into a contract with Dr. Linda Anderson in an amount not to exceed $75,000 to provide principal supervision, instructional leadership, professional development with funding from the district-wide administrative contract services budget.
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Vandermeulen. Any discussion? Board Member Carusi.
I'll start off because I pulled this one. This is a continued contract. We had a similar contract with this person last year for similar work to provide professional development for principals. And I'm just curious, before we approve the second year of funding, how many principals, assistant principals went through this professional development last year? How many do we anticipate this year? How many years do we anticipate we'll be funding this before all of our principals, with the exception of new hires, have received this professional development? I'm just kind of wondering what the cadence is of this PD. I'm also wondering if we learned anything last year that will apply to continuing the contract this year.
Yeah, definitely, I'll have Dr. Pryor speak to it, but, and then follow up with it.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Jenkins. And just for a little clarity, I want to make sure that we all understand this is for principal supervisors. Just as we provide professional development for our building level leaders, we have professional development for our leaders of principals. And so Dr. Anderson has been working with the team and really supporting us in developing a framework as to how do we lead effectively and how do we maximize leadership from our building level leaders? How do we support them in building capacity in their buildings? And so it is a critical piece of our work. It's a critical from the standpoint of supporting us in developing coherence amongst our leaders. And so it is a valuable asset to the team that we're building here to provide leadership to our schools.
And we also get survey feedback from individuals receiving the services, and it's been extremely positive, and as they have described, very helpful for them. As you realize, we have not only just new executives doing this particular work, but they're a new team altogether. So the coherence, everything Dr. Pryor just said, I co-sign off that. So it's been great for us. And this is just a practice, continuous professional development we're talking about.
I would also point out too that this is both individual coaching and support and PD as well as group as well. So again, it's been valuable in our work in building coherence and really developing a framework of what are the true expectations for schools and how do we support principals in realizing the outcomes that we collectively agree upon. And I saw your hand up, Chris.
Yeah, and just a follow-up, I appreciate the clarification about principal supervisors, and I still would like to know, how many people are we training? Like, how many principal supervisors are there? Like, are we training 10 people or 30 people or 4 people? I don't know.
You want to speak to that, Doc?
I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
Oh, and the question is, how many people are we training? I just don't know how many principal supervisors we have.
Okay, it's all of the chief of schools. We have our deputy chief of schools. And I'll be honest with you, she's been very supportive of us. She's also done some consults, excuse me, with our, curriculum and instruction executive director.
So that's 6 people?
And including myself as well.
7 people?
Yeah, 7 people.
7 people. So that's a little over $10,000. No, right? What's the total cost of this? A little over $10,000 a person. Seems like a big investment.
It's a big investment, but it's not as big as it could be when you're talking about professional coaching, because on average for a professional coach, it's about $15,000 to $18,000 a year for a person. And even if we send them to the training, out to go get the professional development training 3 times a year, each trip and what it costs there, you're talking about $12,000 for the training, and some are like $8,000 to $10,000. But we were trying to get systematic training and coherence in what we were doing as well. But it's really not, if you ask around, do a comparison, that's not a lot for that many people. And there are other things she does in our organization with other individuals as well.
Chris Carusi, do you have follow-up?
I guess I would just follow this up by saying that for this level of, it's a pretty significant investment in a small number of people, and if this is going to be an ongoing expense that comes to us each year, I would actually like to get a more detailed report next time around that talks more about the outcomes and how this investment is benefiting our schools and our kids, as well as the people who are getting the coaching.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, I echo that. I'm curious, what is the outcome that was promoted by the professional development we got last year? And I know that there's actually been some pretty, dramatic shifts in the population you just described as having access to this PD. So I guess I'm wondering, how are we gonna leverage the professional development that folks experienced last year, especially if a large majority of the people who got it took those skills somewhere else this year? And how do we plan to see these outcomes in the long term? So what are we hoping the results of this professional development are, and how are we capitalizing on our folks who had this professional development last year?
Most definitely, we can provide that for you when we come back.
Board Member Morelli?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Chris, for bringing that item. I don't have any concerns with the amount. I think that feels like a fair amount for the caliber of the folks in that contract. Similar to President Muldrow, I really would like to know how like what is the management of this professional learnings look like in regards to both the individual growth around this work, and also like what is the scope and sequence of it, as we know, and everyone can benefit from a professional coach, but what is the expected outcome on those? So I think that'd be great. Not just to me, it's not a matter of accountability, but to me, it'll be like a matter of like, how do we scale up and what does it look like for like every year that we make sure that that there's this coaching supports are being allocated, and then there's transparency with the dollar amounts of that allocation. So thank you so much, Dr. Pryor, for moving this work forward. I think it's essential for the staff that you just mentioned to have access to this type of services.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no further discussion, Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Vote carries 6-1. 10.37. I'm sorry, I'm going to bring it up. Is there one before that?
Yes, number 11 and number 13.
All right, I'm sorry, y'all.
I have separated 10, 11, and 10, 13 before, but it's okay to go whatever order you want to go, I guess.
Thanks, Nanda. I'm going to go back to your first separation. So I'm going to go to 10, 11. I move that the Board of Education approve an expenditure of up to $203,000 using funding from the 2021-2022 Office of Youth Reengagement operating budget for the contract services with Madison College from September 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022 to deliver the Gateway to College program during the 2021-2022 school year.
Second, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Any discussion? Board Member Morelli.
Yeah, I have a conflict since I sit in the Madison College School Board. I'll be recusing from voting.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Nama, your advisory vote. All those in favor, aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? One recusal. Board vote carries 6-6.
6-0. Thank you.
6-0. My bad. I move that the Board of Education approve an expenditure to Operation Fresh Start, OFS, for the provisions of diplomas and/or work skills instruction during the 2021-2022 school year in the amount up to $275,000, depending on enrollment, with funding from the 2021-2022 Student Services and Office of Youth Reengagement General Operating Budget.
Second, thank you, Andrew.
Any discussion?
Was that the one that she pulled?
Yes.
Yeah, are we on number 10.13?
Oh my goodness, my apologies, we passed that
I'm
one
sorry.
already.
Thank you.
But shout out to Operation Fresh Start.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
I move that the Board of Education improve an expenditure of an amount up to $60,000, depending on enrollment, for students enrolled in Madison College High School Equivalency Diploma, HSED program for the 2021-2022 school year from the 2021-2022 Office of Youth Reengagement budget. Second, Chris Gomez-Schmidt. Any discussion? Board Member Morelli.
Disclosing my conflict due to sitting in a Madison School Board. Thank you so much, President Muldrow.
Any further discussion? Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? One recusal, 6-0, motion carries.
Thank you. 10.37.
I move the Board of Education approve the August 30, 2021 Human Resources Transaction Report, items 1 through 90. Second, Chris Carusi. Any discussion?
So, I pulled this one because, I wanted to flag to the board, there's quite a lot of new people who we have hired, and I want to welcome all our new hires. It's really exciting to be getting new people into the district, and we want them to feel welcome. It appears that about a third of those new hires are coming in on one-year licenses. And I think this does raise both a concern for the board, in terms of staffing stability. Like, will these people on one-year licenses be able to continue to get their licenses so they can stay in the district? And are we doing anything to support that process of getting additional, permanent licensure for folks? So I just wanted to ask that.
Yeah, given this past year, I don't think it's really unusual when you're really looking around. One-year licensure, but we've been in contact with DPI too, which they're gonna work with us on licensure, just all together to ensure that we can continue to have our individuals pursue the licensure, multi-year licensure as well.
Yeah, we have often brought in some excellent people on one-year licenses who have then had to leave the district because they weren't able to get full licensure. And so anything we can do to support new staff on one-year licensures to become fully licensed teachers, I think would be good for MMSD and good for the teaching profession. Yeah,
I appreciate you bringing that. That's a long-term strategy too, as we continue to talk about recruitment, but also retention. And a part of it is the barrier. What can we do from our end? We have to make those strategic decisions in terms of what does help mean when we're talking about retaining the individuals that we deem to be highly qualified or exceptional teachers.
Further discussion? Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
All right. City of Madison Education Committee?
Hello, yes. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Sabian.
Nah, that's all you.
You are adorable.
It's such a great honor to be working with Sabian on this. So we have had no meeting. Well, so first of all, we're really happy to have Sabian join. I think that is thoughtfully. It's such a great addition because Sabian has been instrumental in the work around the digital equity work that the city has been leading. So really grateful that board member Castro accepted the invitation to join me on that work group. We had no meeting in August, but we are having a meeting this coming Wednesday, and that was an adjustment to our regular scheduled Wednesday due to observance of holidays.
Thank you so much, Board Member Morelli and Board Member Castro. And I do have to say, I deeply appreciate that you all are advocating for the internet as a public utility in our city. I think that is an equity issue. I really appreciate your continued work, effort, and ability to speak to that work. So thank you for all you two are doing to move that along. Student Senate, Nama.
Yeah, thank you. We're planning to meet in the first 3 weeks of September, so we're super excited to finally get together and see everyone after the summer. And we're planning on being virtual for Q1, but hopefully that changes throughout the year. But we'll be flexible and work with the environment and what's happening. But we're excited, and we're excited to see new people and new faces and start the new year strong.
Nama, I want to thank you for your leadership when it comes to Student Senate. I also want to thank Gordon for all the work that he is doing to make Student Senate happen this year. And I also want to let you all know that Chris Gomez-Schmidt is working with Student Senate this year. However, the entire board is a resource to Student Senate, so please feel free to tap board members to come in and make sure Student Senate youth know that we are available to them to support the very, very important work you all do in informing the conversation from the student perspective. Madison School and Community Recreation, MSCR, Board Member Vandermeulen.
Yes, we are finally having our first meeting in person on September 15th, and we're going to discuss our goals and priorities for the year. Looking forward to that upcoming meeting and to update the board. We have not been meeting virtually due to low attendance, as trying to get Zoom and everything set up wasn't always possible in certain areas.
Thank you so much for speaking to that. Board Member Vandermeulen, other business. Revisions to regular board meeting date. I move that the Board of Education reschedule the September regular meeting date to September 27th, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion?
That happened because of the holidays that I got confused for, September, from the high holidays that we are observing. So it was a great change, and I thank Chris for pointing that out, because it's giving us another Monday in September to meet and push that regular meeting back to where it should be. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barb. I think that's a great reason, and I don't know if we need to discuss further. So I'm going to say, Nama, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor, aye. Motion carries 7-0. I move that the Board of Education, I move that the following resolution be approved. Whereas Madison School Board Policy 4045 and Wisconsin State Sanction 120.131E provides that the Madison School Board, hereafter the Board, may adopt a resolution in which the board may authorize the use of an independent hearing officer appointed by the board to determine pupils' expulsion from school, whereas such resolution is only effective during the school year it is adopted, and whereas the board desires to adopt such a resolution and use an independent hearing officer to determine pupil expulsion from school for the 2021-2022 school year. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the use of an independent hearing officer for the 2021-2022 school year to determine a pupil's expulsion from school. And it be further resolved that the following independent hearing examiner shall be appointed to the pool of examiners. David Ryman.
Second.
Second, Board Member Vandermeulen. Any discussion? All right. Nama, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor, aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? David, I'm sorry. I think I missed your vote.
Sorry, I raised my hand, aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Item 14.3 was pulled from the agenda.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge that 14.3 was pulled from the agenda, and we'll move on. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Well done. I'm sorry. Nama, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 All right, motion carries 7-0. Thank you all so much. See you soon.